Good morning. You can hear the 6:30 a.m. cicada things are doing their thing, although there should be in just another 10 minutes or so. Alright, so in a previous video, you may remember that I mentioned in passing somebody I knew who had worked with Dr. Graham extensively in the past, and had gone back to eating animal products, specifically meat, to improve their health. And if I said this person's name, you would know who they were, especially if you've been to the Woodstock Fruit Festival and places like that. You'd be like, really? Right, so my question is, why was Dr. Graham unable to help this person who worked so extensively with him, right? And that gets me back to thinking about things I've heard about Dr. Graham. Like, for example, somebody at his fasting retreat had a horrible time at the end of a fast, was really, really constipated. And she was in horrible pain, and life was just hell, and Dr. Graham was really resistant to letting her do an enema. And finally, after some number of days of horrible constipation, he finally agreed, but instead of going to town and getting a proper enema bucket, bag, whatever, he fashioned one out of an old bucket and a hose. And this is not a very good experience for her. Of course, after the enema, everything was fine again. And that begs the question, why, at a supposedly professional fasting retreat, did they not have even one proper enema bucket? This place that takes in thousands and thousands of dollars for every single fast couldn't afford even $5 for that basic enema bucket on Amazon.com, which is an essential if you're fasting. Why? Well, it's because natural hygiene philosophy says that you should never do enemas while fasting because it's unnatural and the body doesn't need any help, right? Now, that's wrong, of course. I mean, I could say that just over many years I've seen many people fasting. I mean, it's like night and day, fasting with enema, fasting without enema. But even if you still agree that it's better to fast without any enemas whatsoever, you should still have one on hand for an emergency, like, for example, this person who was incredibly constipated, and that's not uncommon after a long water fast. So, the reason, of course, is Dogma. Dr. Graham has spent his whole career teaching natural hygiene, and I understand he believes in that philosophy. I think we have many good things to learn from that philosophy, and it has many great aspects that can be applied to life. But a lot of it is just unrealistic and just doesn't work. And where are all these unseen negative consequences from doing the unnatural things we're not supposed to do according to natural hygiene? Like supplements now. Supplements help me a lot and really quickly. And where are all these supposedly negative effects and imbalances that I was supposed to have gotten when I was doing a bunch of supplementation like a year and a half, 2 years ago? I don't see them anywhere. But now whenever someone tells me, oh, supplementation is bad because they're isolated chemicals and they cause imbalances in the body, I just kind of roll my eyes and I say, okay, all right, fine. Now I know that's not true, because I've done many supplements before. Now, I know you can do it wrong and you can cause problems, sure, if you don't do any research and just start taking a whole bunch of supplements. Now, I even did that somewhat, and I still didn't have problems, but assuming you do your research and you know what you're doing, and you talk to someone who knows what they're doing, you're not going to get a bunch of magical, invisible imbalances from doing supplements. I want to know where all these things are that are supposed to be happening to me from the natural hygiene crowd. They're not happening. Where are the imbalances that I'm supposed to be getting from having taken isolated supplements? Where are they? They haven't shown up. All I've gotten is benefits, no consequences. All right, so basically, what I don't understand is why somebody like Dr. Graham can't use critical thinking and observation and figure out what's going wrong with some people, and then kind of change your beliefs or change your advice or change your teachings a little bit based on that. Now, I know you can't change your teachings based on just the one person. There's always outliers. But now we have a whole movement of people that are having some problems. And with the natural hygiene, we have tons of people using enemas and taking supplements and solving their health problems and not having any negative effects whatsoever. So why are we still teaching that these things cause negative effects? I have no problem looking back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, seeing things that I used to say and saying, no, I was wrong. Now, I have no problem taking something that I said 10 years ago and saying, hey, I was wrong about that. I was totally wrong. After years of experience and observation, there's no way I could possibly say that's correct anymore. I used to be a moderator on 30bananasaday.com. My duty was to dispense health advice to people about the 80-10-10 raw vegan diet based on basically a prescribed set of rules of Dogma. And don't get me wrong, a lot of this stuff was great. A lot of the advice that I was supposed to give was really great and very helpful to people. But there were a lot of things that now I see were just not not good for a lot of people. And I was giving bad advice in some situations, or at least not nuanced advice, or I at least just wasn't thinking and wasn't seeing where there are obvious cases that contradicted what I was telling people. So I can look back and say, okay, this thing that I said was wrong. This thing that I said was wrong. Now I say some things that are completely different, some things that are a little bit different, some things that have a bit of nuance. I think one reason that there are a lot of people that are making their ex-vegan videos or leaving the 80-10 or raw vegan movement, why it's sustainable for some people and not for others. I think there's a lot of teachers, great teachers like Dr. Graham, who is great in a lot of ways, but are giving dogmatic advice and are unable to look back 5, 10, 15 years ago. It hurts them to take advice that they've been giving for 30 plus years and say, I was wrong about this. I need to give this additional advice. People should do this, da 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 da. They just can't do that. I don't understand. I can do it very easily. Maybe it's because I'm young and I started doing it from a young age. I think a lot of people think that their income is dependent on them being right, and it's some thing to admit that they're wrong, so they just can't admit that they're wrong. They think that they'll lose a lot of money, it'll negatively affect their careers. I don't think so. I think it's a sign of maturity for somebody to come out and say, hey, look, listen, this thing that I've been telling you for the last 30 years, I need to change it a little bit, because now after all the evidence, I just got to say that it's a little bit wrong. And people might be like, wow, actually, that's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of people are, you're a hypocrite, you misled us. Because you know what, there's already a bunch of people saying, you misled us, you're a hypocrite, da 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 da. And those are the people that are leaving these movements. So these people might not leave if you actually stopped giving bad advice in the first place. So that's all I have to say for now. I'm not specifically targeting Dr. Graham, and like I said, he's done a lot of great things, and of course helped me a lot in my journey. There are plenty of other examples of people like him who give the same advice their entire careers, really don't change much, and I think that's kind of an issue. I think you really need the ability to look back on something you said 10, 20, 30 years ago and say, hey, no, that was wrong. I've done that with a lot of things. In fact, the entire past decade of my life has been me realizing that everything I knew 2 years ago was wrong. And then 2 years later, everything I knew 2 years ago was wrong, and da-da-da-da-da, so on and so forth. Have a nice day, everybody. I think the cicadas have finally stopped.